years. And I am here with my colleague, Kate Murphy, also co-chair, a marketing manager at Goody Clancy.
Morning.
And we are thrilled to welcome Barbara Hicks, owner of B Graphic, who will lead this session. Barbara is a certified professional services marketeer, CPSM, with 20 years of experience working in the AEC industry with clients all over the country. She is an award-winning marketer and graphic designer with a special interest in creative problem solving. I will now turn it over to Barbara to begin.
Hey guys, let me share my screen here. All right, can you guys see my logo here, B Graphic with BSA at the bottom?
Nice. I like how you're giving it side eye.
Oh,
that's
okay. Awesome. Jesus. Okay.
Barbara, before you jump in, I think I forgot. We talked before that about how you want people to jump in and participate, and I think we agreed that folks could throw their questions into the chat as we go, and we'll just kind of moderate the chat. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think every so often I'll stop and ask, what are the questions, just so it doesn't go too far without being addressed. So every now and then I'll say, okay, what are the questions that are coming in, if any?
Got it.
Response. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. The concept behind my presentation today is that the world is evolving toward the trend of, frankly, being impatient. Think about it. You can fast forward through commercials. You can tell Alexa to turn your lights on for you. You can order dinner without even speaking to another human. People just want what they want, and they want it now. And it's been trending this way for a long time, but since COVID, now they want it in sweatpants. So that's a whole different ballgame. Before we get started, let me just give you a little bit of background on me. I have spent my entire career in the AEC industry, from marketing assistant to coordinator to manager to director to now owner of my own firm. I worked for a large engineering company in Cambridge, then a small architecture firm for over a decade before moving to Atlanta, where I worked with a couple of different firms here, including HOK. I have a background and an education in marketing, but a passion for graphic design. And I went out on my own, started my own business because I wanted more creativity in my day-to-day life. I found that employers found my marketing capabilities to be more valuable than what I really wanted to do, which was graphic design. So about 6 years ago, I started my own graphic design business, but quickly realized I was still pretty heavily opinionated on the strategy, proposal creation, helping firms get work, and the interview prep process, and the whole kit and caboodle. So I decided to use my business to join these two concepts together, and that became my differentiator, being able to not just design a pretty proposal, but also put together the strategy behind it. Not just design a beautiful website, but also make sure the content supports the messaging and their search engine optimization and checking Google Analytics. Just basically everything. I found that taking this holistic approach to these projects makes me more valuable than marketing or graphic design alone. And now it's more fun for me. For me, it's all tied together. And I think it's difficult to find all of that in one place. So that's what sets me apart. Given my background and experience, I find that AEC firms hire me because I understand their internal processes and the tight deadlines that drive a marketing team's daily workload. And one of my major specialties and one of my major offerings for firms is the ability to create usable and design proposal templates that are custom tailored for a client's specific process. And if that process doesn't exist, helping them create it. So I think the biggest thing is just accepting, in terms of proposals, getting into the crux of it. Like I said, people want what they want it now, they're impatient. One thing I've noticed, and I'm guessing you've all seen it too, is that we spend countless hours writing proposals, editing our writing, editing our edits. We do this over and over with the technical staff. It takes forever, it's exhausting, and it's more likely that no one's even reading it. And I find that personally frustrating. So let's dig into this, understanding that our clients are skimmers, because we are skimmers. All right, so let's talk about who is actually reading these proposals. Who is your audience actually? The RFP will always give you a specific name, will typically give you a specific name or a group or a committee, but in general, they are CEOs, facility managers, project managers, or procurement staff. Why are they skimming these documents we put so much time and effort into? It's because they're busy professionals just like we are. They have their own goals to meet just like we do. So they're unable to give our proposals their undivided attention. They are reading, they don't just sit there at their desk and give everything their undivided attention. They are reading these on the train on the way to work, on the couch next to their boyfriend at night after a long day. I've literally heard of people reading this on the toilet or in the doctor's office waiting room, like literally anywhere that they can steal some time, which I know sounds ridiculous, but it makes sense. They're just as busy as we are, right? So let's just accept the fact that they're going to skim, and let's even take it a step further and say that they're likely to open up your document, go to the table of contents, see what page the fee is on, scroll to that page, and call it a day. Now, I know that that sucks. It sucks to hear. We put so much blood, sweat, and tears into this entire process. So my dog is whining. I'm so sorry if you guys hear that. So anyway, with this in mind, how can you convey why your firm is the best for this specific client, for this specific RFP? So let's start with the basics. Humans are visual. We're visual. Knowing that, plan to cater to it. We absorb information very quickly, especially if there's an image or graphic of some kind. How long did it take you to find the anomaly in my little example here? In the shape section, your brain picked out that one square in the row of lines so fast you weren't even conscious of it. I know this sounds dumb, but what does this have to do with skimming? Your clients are relying heavily on these visual cues to decide if the content is worth reading or not. This is an important concept, and I want to make sure people understand. You have to rely on this type of concept to give the information in a way that's easiest for them to receive it. You need to help the reader understand what it is they need to know to move forward in their decision-making process. So how do we do that? Here's the process. First of all, define your audience. What are their names? What are their roles? How are they involved with the client in the project? Using a combination of the RFP, the firm's website, and LinkedIn will help determine this. The second is to understand what elements they need in order to move forward in their decision-making process. What are the client's hot buttons? What are they worried about? What keeps them up at night? I know it's not always possible to know this, but ideally by this point, you've already gone through a go, no-go assessment to make sure that this RFP is a good fit for your firm. And you and your team have already done the schmoozing and the business development to understand more about the client and the project. Ideally, this information is known, but not always shared with the marketing team. So it's important to spread that information. The third step in it is to craft these elements that they need to hear into skimmable content. So that's what we're going to focus on next. So still under the assumption that we're going to jump from the table of contents to the fee, how can we capture their attention while they do this? The way I see it, we have three opportunities. The first is the cover, pretty self-explanatory. When they open up the document, the cover is the first thing they're going to see. It's their first impression. For that reason, it's my preference to use large, full bleed imagery of your best work right off the bat. And if you can, a tagline or a brief statement that positions you for the project. But don't blow it. Don't blow it all on the cover, because the very next page before the table of contents is where you're going to put your executive summary. This is a very corporate title, but in essence, this is where you tell the client why they should hire you. The number one thing your proposal team should focus on upfront after the RFP is received is understanding what your differentiators are. And this is going to basically set the theme for your entire proposal. Specifically, what I'm suggesting is that you address 2 to 3 main points describing why your specific company is perfect for this specific project. And then you spend the rest of the proposal backing up those statements made on this first page. The statements on this page will be repeated and proven throughout the rest of the document. So let's talk about some examples in terms of what I mean. This is not where you say you have an experienced team who has done this work before. This is not where you say that your portfolio or past projects are in the same wheelhouse as your project. These statements can be made by literally every firm responding to this RFP, and probably all of your competitors. And really it fails to set your firm apart, which is the goal. You've already identified the elements that they want to hear moving forward, so use that here. It's difficult to give exact examples because every firm is so different. But here are a few statements that hopefully illustrate what I mean here on the right. Other ideas that, these are very specific, of course, I'm not talking about any one client, but here are a few sort of guidelines. Anything with specific metrics. People love data, and it's quite convincing. In the lower right here, talked about we're able to reduce the client's utility bills by half. A big 50% infographic would look really cool there. Any past working relationships with other project stakeholders, like other team members already identified by the client in the RFP. That can include the architect, engineers, construction manager, town and city officials, that kind of thing. Having a working relationship with other members of the team helps save time. Time is money, reduce budget. You see where I'm going. Any proprietary software that you've invented or developed to make the process faster or cheaper. Some engineering firms do this. I've seen cost estimating firms have this type of thing. Anything that you've developed yourself, that a firm has developed itself to make it better for their clients, shows ingenuity and innovation, and clients love that. Whatever it is that goes in this executive summary or why hire us, this is truly a personal response per firm, and the statements made here should not be able to be claimed by any other firm. I'll give you an example. I had one client talk about communication here. One of their differentiators was that they believe communication is the most important part of any project, and therefore it should be free. So for that reason, they didn't charge for any meeting time, phone calls, saving the client a ton of billable hours. So what does an executive summary look like? Something like this. Here's a couple of them. Has a big bold heading at the top. Why should you hire us? What makes us unique? If there's room for a photo or a little icon, that's great. But basically you have a large type that basically says, here's why you should hire us. And then a little descriptor that further explains in case they want to read more. This one over on the left here at the bottom, benefit to the client. This is brilliant. It's like, so what? Why should I care? And then you just tell them. I love this. Anyway, before diving into designing a document for maximum success, let's go over a few of the basics. This should be obvious, but it is overlooked so often. Read the entire RFP, not just the section that states what it is they want in their response. This is especially important for marketers. We know that the technical staff and principals already do this, but there are oftentimes Easter eggs throughout the entire document that gives you insight into what they're thinking. And sometimes there's even other things in there that they require in the proposal that they forgot to put into the required stuff that they're looking for. RFPs are written by people. Sometimes they're written by people that have no idea what they're doing. So I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a ton of RFPs where it asks for the same thing multiple times. It's poorly written. So try and read between the lines in terms of what they're looking for. Respond to everything they ask for, and I mean every damn thing. If they want to see your experience in a particular area where you don't have that experience, ignoring the request makes it look like you have something to hide. It makes you look unresponsive. I say hit those areas head on by explaining why you're unable to respond to that topic. Obviously give them a little bit of a marketing spin so it doesn't sound so bad. One example, I was asked to put together a proposal for a university for a company that had never done higher education work before. They were trying to break into the market. They felt like they had the right experience. The scope of work in the RFP was for administrative areas and a dorm. Okay, it's for higher ed, but the company had plenty of corporate work and hospitality experience. So we crafted a statement that explained how the experience the potential client was looking for was easily transferable to higher ed, and then further proved it by the way they wrote the project descriptions, specifically comparing the two industries. Another of the RFP requirements, make sure to meet all of their requirements, meet their page limit, font size, and anything else, even if you think they're stupid, which they probably are, but it's important that they understand how responsive you are. All right, talking about the rest of the proposal, here are 6 ways to make your content more skimmable. Or how about now? How about now for questions? Are there any overarching questions you're seeing?
I've got nothing in the chat, but I'm sure people have questions for you.
Okay.
I know I do.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you want to ask?
Can I jump in? I bet I'm going to answer 30 people's question right here. That cover letter didn't look like a cover letter, Barbara. That looked like some sort of fun infographic. Cover letters are supposed to have a header and a salutation and 3 body paragraphs and a concluding thing with a signature. Come on.
Yes. Yes. So cover letters, well, that's the difference. What I'm suggesting is an executive summary in so many words. Hang on a second here. Go back to that. So a cover letter is a different situation. A cover letter is like, hi, Linda, thank you for inviting us to submit our proposal to blah, 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 right? That is the stupid stuff that they want to see that a lot of times you feel like you're forced to do because that's tradition, that's the habit. If you are doing hard copies, sometimes including that letter outside of the bound packet, putting it on top, along with the package is one way to do it. We're in the era now where most things are digital submission. So you can put that type of stuff in the email. So, attached, please find a proposal. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. For those who can't let go of that traditional thing, I would make it after this. So I would have the cover, then why you should hire us, and basically then a letter that talks about all of that. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Okay, that's of course, that's my opinion. A lot of people are like, well, it's the cover letter. It has to go right after the cover. And yes, but it's like, it's a snooze fest at that point. So I say bury it just a little bit because something like this would be more important.
All right.
All right. All right. All right, let's get going. 6 ways to make your content more skimmable. All right, let's talk about white space. Does anybody see Waldo in here? Anybody find him? Oh, there he is. Your concepts are so much easier to digest when you don't bog them down with extraneous information. While it would be awesome if there was less text overall, I know leadership and technical staff have a really hard time letting go of all of that text. And since we can't seem to cut that cord, let's use these 6 ways to make the text feel less overwhelming while conveying these ideas without having to read every single word. So here's an example of a project description. A lot of times these are 1 pages. In this particular one, we're using the spread as the whole design. So we have 1 entire page for images, 1 entire page for text. But the text on this page is just, it's not overwhelming. It's easily readable. And if you're just looking for the pretty pictures, you don't even have to read it. You get a good idea that this is a good designer, this is a good architect, they do good work. We don't need to read about it. We can see it right here in, I was gonna say black and white, but in all the colors. There's a couple of more designs I've done that have just include a lot more white space. Another really important aspect is type hierarchy, making sure text is readable large from a distance so that they can get the quick headline without having to read the whole article, so to speak. Assign yourself multiple styles in your proposal document, including a page header, multiple text headings, bullet text, body text. Setting up these styles are a great way to automate the formatting in your document, even if you're using Word as opposed to InDesign, you can do it in there as well. Headings should be large and colorful. Here's an example. What's easier to read, this paragraph or this one? Bullet points are another great way. I know this sounds like, duh, no kidding. Bullets are great because it adds white space into the text and makes a list look less overwhelming. So what's easier to read? Something like this or something like this? Bonus, if you can even turn it into a graphic to make it more pretty, I guess. The next point is photography. They say photos convey 1,000 words, right? Use big, bold imagery to tell your story, not little thumbnails. I mean large, full bleed imagery whenever possible. As some of you might know, reader retention increases by 300% when using photos. So it's a pretty solid stat. Call outs. Don't make someone hunt for the point in a paragraph of text. Put Waldo alone on the page to make sure that, or at least huge on the page to make sure that it stands out above all others. And while looks like I forgot to include an example of this, you know, these large statements in the middle are great, but if you're dealing on the right here, if you're dealing with a lot of text, and there's one sentence in the middle that's really important, take that sentence in the middle, make it a couple point sizes larger, make it a different color. It sounds, I wish so hard I had put an example in here because it doesn't look as bad as it sounds, but having one sentence in the middle be a totally different color and twice as big as what's there, it really makes it pop without losing the flow of the paragraph if the person is choosing to read it. And finally, infographics. So whenever possible, use a graphic to replace text. It conveys the idea so much faster while freeing up page real estate for white space and other important things. So here's an example. What do you guys think is easier to read? This little paragraph here or a graphic that looks like this? All right, this one's a bit of a trick example. So what's easier to read? Something like this or something like this, right? Technical staff love their Excel charts and pie graphs and all these things. And while yes, this pie chart is easier to read, this is even easier to read. Your goal isn't to make them want to read every single word, although that would be nice. Your goal is to give them the information they need to move on to the next level, typically the interview, in an easier way. Finding ways to reduce pages of text to a graphic is awesome. So here is, oh, here you go, find ways to reduce pages of text to a graphic. Here's one example. I had a client who wanted to include all 78 of their awards into a proposal. Implementing white space and type hierarchy made this 4 pages long. If there was a page limit, that blows it. If, you know, who has time to read 4 pages of awards? You get the point. Just looking at it, you get the point. But instead, we turn that into a simple graphic where we basically boil it down into the categories that we thought were important. If they want to see the whole list, you can include a link, you know, to the website saying, oh, here, all of our awards are a place. But this is so much easier to read and takes up so much less space than this type of thing. I had one RFP for a client going after work at the Atlanta airport where the RFP was ridiculous. It's like 99 pages long. They wanted to see which specific team members had specific skills listed in the RFP. And of course, my client threw 16 pages of paragraphs at me. But that doesn't help the reader, right? The reader can look at something like this. It's such a large team with all of these different skills. You can see at a glance who has what skill, and you don't literally have to flip the page 16 times. Maps are really good as well. Showcase where you've done work around their project site. This is especially useful, the one on the right here. This is especially useful when you have to get like city and town officials involved in the project to show like, yes, we've worked in this exact area, which means we know what's happening underneath the streets. We know what's happening with the piping and the cabling and city ordinances and, you know, all that type of thing. I had another client, the Wharf District Council, who was upset they were adding yet another dispensary in their neighborhood. So they asked me to put something together that would illustrate to voters exactly how close and how many already existed in the same one neighborhood. Yeah, you can say that in a couple of sentences, but this really drives the point home without having to read too much. All right, talk to me about your questions so far. Next up is process. This is going faster than I thought it was going to. Any questions? Okay.
I'm not seeing in the chat, but my psychic senses picked up on some tingling when people probably saw those big images and thought, wait a minute, but I'm not going to be able to show a picture of the lab and the collaboration space on the front door. And what about the landscape? I need to have a grid of 9 images on that page, or I'm not conveying the project effectively to the client. Surely they want to see the hallway.
Yeah, I hear you. So that is some of the feedback that I've received when presenting this before. I presented this style here in Atlanta, and it was a half-day situation, and we took a break, and I decided to go to the bathroom, and I was bombarded in the bathroom by all these people coming up to me saying, these are awesome concepts, our stuff would look so much better, but my boss will never let me add white space. My boss will never reduce, we'll never reduce the amount of text. We'll never want all of this stuff. And I think breaking some of those traditions, I mean, this is definitely a tradition in our industry, no offense, especially for the engineers, because they have so much technical speak and they want all of it to fit on, one page, Times New Roman 9 point with the tiniest margins and really tight letting. And they want to show all the projects at once. But when you have multiple images per page, unless there's a hierarchy of images, right? Unless there's one big one and a bunch of small ones, how does your client know where to focus? How do they know which image is more important? And honestly, it's the same thing with text. You take the text that is most important and you make it large to make sure that they see it. And it's sort of like image hierarchy too, I guess, on your specific questions, going from thumbnails to larger images. I'm guessing if you could put something in your proposal, if you're really tied to it, you could put something in your proposal that says, for more information on this project or for additional images, click here, and you make it a hyperlink to your website where all of those thumbnails certainly exist, right, in your portfolio section. Getting leadership on board with some of these concepts, I think, can be difficult. Because they're holding on so hard. But the fact of the matter is things are changing. People are, like I said, people are becoming more impatient, and using some of these examples like ordering dinner really quick and having my Google Assistant turn on lights in my bedroom. It's fast. Everything's moving really fast, and getting leadership to understand that things are not being read. You have such a short window to make such a large impression that you got to go with industry best practices. You got to go with what's going to help them get the point faster. If you guys know the client and seeing a sea of the same size images on a page is going to speak to them, great. You guys know them better than I would, of course. But in general, people need a little bit more hand-holding than we've been giving them. And they don't even realize it. Like, of course, you can go through and read every word and look at every picture in depth, but ain't nobody got time for that, right? Not a short answer, sorry.
Tough question. Barbara,
yeah.
You, in the time that it took for me to ask it and for you to answer it, people got brave and finished typing. And now you've got about 20 questions. So
all right.
let me pick a few. I think you just answered one of them, which was like, how do you get buy-in for moving away from heavy text?
Buy-in is tough.
Yeah.
Especially if you are a younger marketer and you haven't been at the company very long, you don't have a lot of clout, you don't have those stripes on your sleeve, as one boss said to me once. I guess it's just trying to remind trying to remind the people that are requiring that need to give you the buy-in, reminding them that you are professional, you're a professional marketer, you're taking steps to improve your career by taking classes and seminars like this, just like leadership is getting their continuing education credits for, AIA or PE or whatever it is. Every aspect of our industry is led by best practices. And so reminding them that you're not just some hired hand, you're there because you're an expert in what you do. And even if you're not an expert, even if you're young and new to it, you're trying, you're getting involved with organizations and you're attending things like this, and putting this type of stuff into place just shows to leadership that you care about what you do, you care about the results. And so I think when it comes to buy-in, the major concept that marketers don't fully understand or don't fully think about is that, how do I explain this? I think I was telling you, Kate and Marcia, when we were talking about this initially, marketers have a bigger job than they realize. Like, you're sitting there and you're putting these proposals together in almost a robotic fashion, right? Because you got 3 RFP deadlines this week, so you got to get it done and move on. But the fact of the matter is that every decision made in these marketing meetings, every decision made on these proposals impacts the wallets of everyone who works there. So if you feel strongly about a certain thing, but your boss can't let go of a picture or some white space, like, get into the right headspace, like, understand that whatever decision it is, but winning or losing this proposal could mean somebody keeping or losing their job, could mean somebody getting a holiday bonus or not getting a holiday bonus. Every decision made in these meetings leads to the success or failure of getting a particular project. The more projects you get, the more successful the firm is, the more likely it is you're going to get paid or get a new computer or get a better holiday party. I mean, I know all of us love marketing so much that we would do it for free, right? But fact of the matter is we're there to get paid. And I don't know about you guys, but I want a bigger holiday bonus at the end. I want to get a better raise, but they can't give that to you if you're not successful on these pursuits. And so getting leadership to understand that you understand that concept, that you understand the money aspect and how your role in the firm really plays into it a lot more than some other roles. I think having leadership understand that, they'll give you a little bit more leeway. Once they understand that you understand their struggle, it'll help, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a few of the questions too that we have popped up in the chat. Please. One is, what if a proposal asks for more text when you're retooling to make your proposals more skimmable? Do you always allow for the follow the RFP? What do you suggest, Barbara?
Yes. If the RFP is asking you to describe in detail, blah, 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 you always have to go with what the RFP is asking for. RFP requirements trumps everything I'm saying here, basically. They are telling you exactly what they want to see, so listen to them. Excuse me. That being said, the information that you give them can be formatted in a way that's easier for them to digest. It's easier for them to digest more so than the other competitors. Score.
Okay. And what about this one? How do we have somebody who graphic design may not be like their main talent, but how do you get up to speed on creating graphics like the things that you've just shown on the screen? Do you have any recommendations or resources that you could give to our audience?
Yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. Hang on.
While you're looking, Barbara, I'll also mention that Christy Norris threw into the chat a couple of resources. So thank you, Christy, for that. She mentioned SNPS having courses for graphic designers and also checking out Adobe Max.
Yes, that's important as well. Okay, so there are many resources. Now, as a graphic designer, I believe in coming up with original content whenever possible, just because I love doing it. That being said, not all of you are graphic designers, and many of you are expected to be, right? So a couple things, Google Image and Pinterest are both really good. Take a look, just Googling infographics gives you so many things. It helps at least inspire you to see what's out there. There are 2 websites I use when I need a really complex infographic and I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it. One of them is storyblocks.com, STORYBLOCKS.com. They have a lot of vector graphics and a huge thing of infographics. Another one is Vecteezy, VECTEEZY. Their vector graphics are $1. So super cheap, and you can sign up. I think it's $99 for a year, and it's unlimited free downloads. They also have stock photography, not as good as Adobe, of course, but they have a ton of infographic samples. Basically, they come to you in Illustrator files, and you can bring them into Illustrator. Even if you don't know Illustrator, bring them into Illustrator and just copy and paste them into InDesign. They'll come in as vector, and then you can change the colors and add in your own text and shadows and whatever it is that you like. There are a couple of free resources as well. One of them is called PictoChart, PIKTOCHART. And what's this one? One of them is called Infogram, INFOGRAM.com. Actually, this is an older presentation. Let me.
One thing we could do is we could follow up either on the our LinkedIn group page, or if folks have specific questions and want to get a list of these sources, then we can maybe create a list and share that with anybody who requests it.
Yeah, I see someone on here put the nounproject.com. They are great. Noun Project is awesome, especially for icons. You know, icons are like all the rage these days, right? They have good ones.
Okay, so Barbara, another question. Should we assume that RFPs are still being printed, or should we assume that they are being viewed on the screen? And does that change the page size orientation? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the trend is moving more and more toward digital. Printing is expensive, and carrying books around from multiple firms going after the same project can be tedious. So people just like I said, people are impatient. They want to look at them on their cell phone and call it a day. So it depends on what you think. A lot of people are looking at them on mobile, which is tall. A lot of people are looking at them on desktop, which is wide. Personally, I'm seeing the trend going in a more wide layout, landscape layout, and not just 8.5 by 11 either. 11 by 17 also works. Video, what is video? 1920 by 1080, I think, is the standard screen size, and that's what the standard video size is. So having it be that same size as well. You'll notice if you have the latest of PowerPoint, when you start a new PowerPoint presentation, it's no longer like 7 by 10, it's now like 13 by 7 or something. So that is the trend that it's heading toward.
Okay. And in the beginning of the presentation, you had mentioned fee when you were talking about the table of contents. Mm-hmm. Can you clarify how those things are related?
Yeah, typically when you are submitting a proposal, you're submitting a long document with about the firm, resumes, project descriptions, case studies, typically a project approach, maybe a schedule. Most proposals include a fee section. Here's how much we're going to charge you to do the work that you're suggesting in the RFP. The people who put out the RFP, especially the higher ups, they're looking hard at cost, right? So a lot of people go to the table of contents to see what page the fee is on, and then scroll through everything else to just get to the fee really quick to see where you stand, where you compare. So what I'm saying is, between the cover and the table of contents, you have a brief window to get across as much information as possible. And as they're scrolling through the rest of the document to get to that fee page, which is typically at the end, most people put it at the end, as they are scrolling through to get to that fee, you're scrolling past all these graphics and large headings, and hopefully some of it will stick and make them stop to look more.
Okay, great. And then we also had a comment about someone had suggested using this process, maybe if their proposals weren't so graphically heavy before, more text heavy, trying it out with a new client, but maybe if the client sees that your firm's brand has changed, it's changed your image, they may not see this as authentically you. Can you comment about that? Is there an easy way to ease into that change of how you're, restructuring the way your proposal looks? how can you make it so that the brand it's non-recognizable to your client that may be a repeat client?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I didn't see who asked that question, so this is not a personal, totally personal response, but I feel like you might be overthinking it just a little bit. So I think if you have a client who's used to seeing something a certain way, and then they see something that's much improved, I feel like they're not likely to question it. They're more likely to accept it with open arms. That being said, I feel like everything you do should be branded to who your firm is, right? So your firm has an existing brand. It's been communicated in previous proposals. It's communicated on your website and your brochures. So stick with that brand, but there's nothing to say that you can't refresh that brand or improve or build upon that brand. So your brand isn't just your logo and these images and the text. It's everything people are saying about you when you're not in the room, right? So these guys did a great job on that project. These guys were late every single time. These guys overpromised and never, that's the brand is what they're saying. So ideally you're putting out there what the message is that you want people to be talking about, that you're an expert in this, that you're really great with project management, that you meet the schedule and fee every single time, meet the schedule and budget every single time. Those are the things that you want people saying. And so using imagery now when you didn't last time doesn't change your brand. It just improves upon it. It just shows them, look, this image represents the amazing designs that we've done, the amazing engineering that we've done. And I think that they're less likely to question it and more likely to just say, hey, awesome.
Okay, great. And then another question.
Yeah.
It also seems like infographics seem repeatable in proposals while not feeling as copy pasted and generic as the text version. Have you found that to be the case?
I have found that infographics can be repeatable, especially if it's built on a concept based on your firm that you can use on multiple ones. Infographics don't have to be crazy and detailed. I've got an infographic presentation here that I wanted to here. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So infographics don't have to be crazy. Here's one I designed that talks about statistics. Here's one that's really more anecdotal. This one, this is what the client wanted. It's difficult to read.
We're still seeing your slideshow. Sorry, you're going to have to unshare and reshare.
Oh, gotcha.
You can save it for the end if you don't want to mess with the PowerPoint.
That's okay. Sorry about that. So in general, infographics don't have to be complicated. Let me see here. Hang on. Where's the one? Oh, like this one. Can you see this?
Not yet.
No? Okay. How about now?
Still no.
Still no. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, hang on. Share my screen. Desktop 2. I'm sorry about this. Here, I'll just do the whole desktop so I can grab stuff. Okay. You see this chart over here on the left and these circles over here on the right? Nope, no, you don't.
They sound great. Wait, something happened.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
I am so dumb with Zoom. I'm so Zoom stupid. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is not a complicated infographic, right? It's one icon that could have been gotten from the Noun project, and it's circles with large text. And this is just so much easier to read than 3 lines of text. And it's not that the text up top is difficult to read. It's just text. It matches all the other stuff in the document. So if you want it to stand out, using something like this is just so much better and easier. And yes, this is absolutely repeatable across multiple concepts, across multiple proposals. Ideally, you're going to build an infographic that is repeatable so that you can use it down the road. Once you improve upon this stuff in your business, it's just, in my experience, once you start down this process, leadership gets on board pretty quick and they're motivated to keep it going. So making this stuff as repeatable as possible is just going to be more efficient for you down the road.
Okay, Barbara, so we're going to let you continue on with the presentation, and we'll
Okay.
stop questions for now and
No problem.
do more later. So
All right.
thanks everyone for your questions.
All right. Do you see proposal process on the screen?
Yes.
All right. I did it. I did it. Okay. So a lot of, I was asked to talk about the proposal process in here. Now, the process for each firm is very different. I believe it starts from the ground up. Every firm's process has to match what's going on with them, what's going on with the network folder structure, what kind of software is being used, how big is the team, what is the typical workload. Those are the types of things that the process takes into account. But in general, I'll give you the general process that I go through with clients. So first, of course, is going to be the go, no go assessment. In my opinion, far too often leadership doesn't go through this. They go through it. They think, can we do it? Yes or no? If so, let's go after it. When in fact, they may not be well positioned for it. Another firm may have already done their homework. You know, if you haven't done your homework on a particular RFP, in my opinion, you have a really quick window to get that homework done and get the proposal done ahead of time. If you're getting a surprise RFP, chances are it's not meant for you. I guess that's just my opinion. But so having a go, no go document that asks the right questions. Are you well positioned for the proposal? Do you have the proper team and experience to pursue? What are the relationships like? Did you do your research? What did that research show? Basically, the decision needs to be made if this is going to be a good move or a waste of everybody's money and time. So once that's done, to make that decision, especially if you've put in the work, you know, again, all of the hot buttons are known, the team players are known ahead of time. Like if all of that is done, then that's your best bet. Once, assuming you've decided to go for the proposal, you need to define your internal team. This is getting everybody in-house who's going to put the proposal together. In general, you need a proposal champion. This is the one who manages it from start to finish, ensures all the parts and pieces are done on time, and guarantees delivery. You'll need a technical writer to make sure that the concepts that are potentially above a marketer's head are properly conveyed. But then you need that marketer to sort of help translate it from geek speak, what I call geek speak, to normal people, which are your clients, basically. And then you're going to need a reviewer, ideally someone objective who was not part of the proposal process. That person is going to call out red flags or things that are missing that you may not realize because you're too close to it. This is going to be an important team. So once that's identified, then you're going to create a schedule. Starting backwards from the due date, create a schedule that includes time for research, doing your homework, writing, design and layout, reviews, production if hard copies are needed, and of course, delivery. And your schedule should also include meetings, status meetings, milestones. We need the schedule by this point, and this person can't work on this until the schedule is done, and we need a graphic of this, but we can't do the graphic until this part's done. Put it all out in a glorified project schedule and hold people's feet to the fire for that schedule. To me, number 4 is the most important. This is where you create and maintain what I call the Bible of the proposal. So the proposal champion, typically a marketer, should maintain a document that anyone can access at any time to see the full status of the proposal. This proposal has, this Bible has so many benefits. A document like this helps keep leadership feeling confident that marketing has a handle on the proposal, while also providing a one-stop shop for the marketing team. If something happens to the proposal champion, if they get COVID, if they have a family emergency, another team member can basically open up this document, see where everything is, and know exactly where they need to go to keep the process going in that other marketer's absence. This document includes everything. Again, this is like the one-stop shop for everybody on the internal team to take a look and see everything at a glance. The document should include the name of the client, the name of the project, who is the internal team, who are the team members putting the proposal together, who is responsible for what section and when that content is due to the marketer. Make sure this document is tied to the schedule that you've created. This document includes project issues, hot buttons, who the known competitors are, how it's going to be delivered, and who specifically is responsible for that delivery. What research was completed and what did that research show? Everything you could possibly need to know to put this proposal together should be in there and tied to the schedule. In my opinion, as the marketing champion, or as, you know, typically the marketer puts this together. So in my opinion, the marketer creates all of this ahead of a kickoff meeting for the whole thing. So the next step is like an extensive kickoff meeting. So put all of this together because it's easier for leadership to edit a paragraph than write one from scratch, right? So doing all of this ahead of time is going to save time. Having the meeting and then putting all of this together is just going to make the project last that much longer, and you may not have time. Maybe you received the RFP with a week to go or just a few days. Obviously, you have to accelerate the schedule when you don't have the right amount of time, but if you get the RFP early and you have enough time, putting this content together ahead of the kickoff meeting is going to be ideal. Schedule a meeting and invite all the right people and make sure they show up. Don't have the meeting without these people because all of their input is critical. Holding a meeting with the defined team to go over this outline and schedule, discuss as a group what the hot buttons are. What is the theme of the proposal? What goes into that executive summary or why hire us document? And what should make up that page? There are going to be differing opinions. There are going to be conflicting opinions. This is where you get all of that diversity of thought on the same one page so that everybody leaves the meeting knowing what their responsibilities are and what the strategy and direction of the proposal are. After the meeting, update your Bible with all of this information, everything that was decided, who is doing what by when, etc. Once that's done, get to work. Hold everybody accountable, follow up with everybody, send calendar invites for the milestones, make sure it's on their calendar. Some people cannot function if this stuff isn't on their calendar. Understanding how your team works is critical to, you know, making this successful. If you know that your principal isn't going to focus on this without a calendar invite, just go the extra mile and send that invite. Maybe you shouldn't have to, maybe he should do it on his own, but just make it easier on yourself by holding their hand a little bit, in my opinion. Once this is done, once the Bible has been made and everybody's off to work, start putting the proposal together and build it with placeholders. By this point, you guys have probably already discussed what are the resumes you're going to be putting in, what are the project sheets, case studies you're going to be putting in. Basically, how is this proposal going to be built, and then start building it. And leave in placeholders. What I do is I use a big hideous color that I want to get rid of, right? So I use this bright fuchsia pink color, and my goal is to get rid of the fuchsia. So every time I get rid of that, actual content is being put in its place. This proposal shell, send it to the team on a regular basis so that they can see that the work they're doing is getting filled in. As you're filling it in, it's feeling more complete. People are feeling more accomplished. That's a positive feeling during what can be a stressful time. So seeing that that sort of continuing level of completeness, I think, is helpful for everybody. It also helps show the team what's missing. It's also a good opportunity to, you know, the people where there are still those large pink boxes, it's a good opportunity to sort of embarrass them into getting it done. Like, hey, look at all the stuff that's missing. Hurry up, hurry up. Once the proposal is complete, now you have your closeout. This closeout period, step 7 here, is going to save you on the next proposal, especially for those of you who have multiple proposals due in 1 week, where you have to do this, you know, multiple times. The closeout stage is important because it makes it easier moving forward. Do you have a way to follow up on things? If your company deals with hard copies, this is where you make one for yourself. If your firm files stuff that way. Any information you have to enter into a database, this is the time to do it so that you don't have to hunt for it later. Clean up your folder structure so that a marketing teammate going in trying to find other stuff can see things easily, especially now that the craziness has died down. Did you create anything special for this proposal that you think might be usable in the future? Did you create a special infographic that you think could be repeatable down the road? This is where you would take it, save it in the proper location, and let your marketing team know, hey, this was created in case you have any use for it and anything else you're doing. That is my suggested process. Again, this is, it's very personalized to each firm. Each firm has their own way of doing things, has their own way of making things easier for their team and their leadership. So it's very much based on culture, team size, workload. But if you take some care and if you really take a step back and look at everything, you know, from a high level, typically you can see where some of the pitfalls are, you can see where some of the bottlenecks are, and just try and make things more efficient so that you can get things done faster and move on to the next proposal while trying to maximize success. That is my presentation. So talk to me about what questions you guys have, what your experiences are like. What do you think?
I certainly had a question pop up for me about your extensive kickoff meeting. So I'll throw out my question, and that way everybody else can type their 42 questions into the chat or get brave to raise their hands and speak. My question is about how long a meeting do you think that could be? and it's probably not really that question, because that sounds like a 3-hour meeting to me. And I do not want you to answer the question, how do you run an effective meeting? But it sounds like there needs to be some clearly defined homework for everybody to have done going into that meeting and tight controls on the topics and the clock. Do you have any suggestions about how that meeting goes and what comes before?
I do, but I wish I'd had better success with these suggestions. The reason I say have an extensive kickoff meeting is because it's difficult. I have found in person, it is difficult to get people to focus on this. I've had principals show up not even having read the RFP yet to these meetings. So that's why doing as much of your homework ahead of time and holding hands as much as possible ahead of the meeting, I think, is critical. Of course, it would be ideal if everybody read the RFP, came to the meeting with ideas. Of course, that would be amazing. But if I can't even get people to focus on person, I don't know how to do it now that people are working remotely. So typically what I do is I put everything in an email ahead of time. I say, here's the RFP, here's the deadline, here's what I'm thinking in terms of this, this, and this. Reading an email where you're seeing thoughts about how to go for it, how to go for their proposal, typically motivates people to think about it, especially if they feel you've gotten it wrong. If you say, I think we should go about it this way or this way, and they're like, nah, that's crap, we got to do it this way, they're more likely to think about it, prove themselves right, and interact with it more. In my experience, this comes more from the younger staff, the project architects, the people who are still trying to make it and climb that ladder. They're usually more motivated to be heard by leadership. Whereas leadership, again, I'm just talking about my experience. This is not personal to anybody who's on this, but leadership, they have bigger fish to fry. You know, this proposal is just one tiny blip on a huge calendar of other stuff that they have to focus on. And they just don't want to give it the time that it deserves. So yes, getting people to think about it in advance is best, but not always realistic.
Okay, so we want to take the time, Kate and I right now, to invite anybody that does have questions. Why don't they you can go ahead and I think we have enabled it so that you can speak directly and just ask Barbara direct for questions. But we also do have a few questions as well in the chat that we want to make sure that we ask. So does anybody want to speak up right now direct and ask Barbara a question from the audience? Okay. Well, if I don't hear anyone, then I'll go ahead and ask some of these questions here. Barbara, do you have suggestions on how to rein in technical staff who think more is more and continually want to add more examples and bloat the page count?
Yes. Yes, but again, my answer is not going to be popular. It's just reminding them like, hey, you're the expert on this. I'm the expert on this. So like, yes, we can definitely fill this proposal with all of the examples you want, but every additional example you add is going to water down the others. So what are the top 3? What are the top 5? I mean, of course, it goes back to the RFP. How many examples is the RFP asking for? If they don't ask for any, I think sticking with a solid number like 3 or 5 is really good. Of course, you could provide 20 or 30, but again, that's just going to water down the message. And once they see that you can do this, they seeing it a few times is helpful, but it just becomes repetitive and boring for the reader after a while. And the point is to help the reader make the decision they need to move forward. So you're not helping the reader by giving them more work to continue reading and continue flipping pages. Again, probably not a popular answer, but that's definitely my answer.
Okay. I've got another question from the chat. Can a firm use someone else's content that they convert to an infographic with, even if they credit that source? What is your feeling on that?
Yes. Use any resources, any tools in your arsenal to convey the right point. And if that is secondary research, that's fine, as long as the source is credited. I think you're good to go. As a matter of fact, the cooler the source, the better, right? If you're quoting specific metrics, industry metrics, not necessarily firm metrics, and those came from Forbes or Business Week, the cooler the source, the better. I'm okay. Oh God, I'm okay with the reader looking and not quickly seeing the source. Like I might make the source smaller and maybe off to the side, because it would be better if it were primary, of course, but it can't always be. And
I'm glad you said, oh God. I'm judging you hard now.
I don't want to say this because
intellectual property forbids.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that I'm screwing with intellectual property, because you're covering yourself by putting the source there. It's just if it's an 8.50% black text, that's how I would do it. But you could, I see people laughing, I'm so glad. But you could also, even if you don't have the resources to create your own infographic, if one already exists on this exact thing, steal it, use it. As long as you're giving credit, you're not stealing anything. And it's not like you're publishing this on your website or out there in a white paper. It's in a book that only you and your client are pretty much going to see.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so does anybody have a question from the audience that they want to go ahead and ask? Or if not, I can go back to the chat. Anyone?
I see one here. I see one here I would love to answer.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Is that Susan? Susan, do you want to pipe up?
The annoying font size. The font size is just like my version of hell. In my opinion, text is perfectly readable at 9 point or 10 point. And those bastards that want to see it at 12 point are just trying to make your life miserable. That's just my opinion. What do you do when requirements call for giant font sizes that tend to break your templates and internal graphic standards? So the process I use with that is to continue as normal with the shell and the layout of your proposal. And then if your proposal is built correctly with styles, then you can go in and just change the style, up the font, increase the leading a little bit so it's not so squished, and then basically go in and find out where it's broken in that document and fix it. Unfortunately, that huge font, it's required. That's what they want to see, especially if they tell you the font they want to see as well. They can really mess with you there. But fonts can also be a little bit tricky, right? So Helvetica is a larger, wider font than Arial. You can get away with using 10 point or 12 point if the font itself is already large. So fonts like Gotham, Helvetica, Avenir, those are typically a point or two size larger anyway. So I even go down, I go to like typically 9-point. And when they want to see it at 12-point, maybe I'll go to 10.5 or 11. You're still giving them a larger font. They don't know what font it is. They don't know it's not exactly 12. They're not sitting there with the ruler, But I'm not going to lie, it's a pain in the ass, and it breaks your templates, and it's annoying. And whenever you want to steal that content for use in future proposals, it's a nightmare because now you have to reformat it and blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, you gotta stick with it. Now, I have one client, they are a global client, so I trust their opinion on this. They stick with the larger font in all body text. But inside of infographics and other charts, they make it smaller because there's no way to make some of that fit on one page. And it needs to be an at a glance situation, right? Like they need to see it all on one page for the concept to work out. And
how many of their debriefs have revealed that they weren't selected due to font size?
That's a great question.
I'm guessing it's a small number. Maybe an incredibly small number.
Be interesting to test, but
yeah, who wants
lose
to go
your job
first?
over it.
So, but there was another comment that a good point about what if they're looking on the phone and, is that an issue? Will the 12-point look tiny?
Yeah, I mean, everything is going to look tiny on a phone, especially if it's formatted wide. Hopefully the people reviewing these proposals do themselves a favor and do it at least on an iPad or a laptop or something. But I will say phone is definitely the way. I mean, phones are getting bigger. My first iPhone was little. This is my phone now. It's relatively large. And I love it because the majority of the things I do on this phone are watch TikTok and text people. And I want it to be big. I want to see what people are cooking. I want to see those doggies tripping over the balls,
I have to suspect, Leslie, that if somebody on a committee has chosen to review something on their phone, it's because they're comfortable zooming in and out of text and reading that scale of content on their phone. And we shouldn't necessarily have to, change everything to suit that format. That's my suspicion.
Yeah, it also depends. I mean, hopefully by the time you're submitting the proposal, you've done your homework on who the reader is going to be. And typically you can take a look at their LinkedIn, if they included a graduation year, you can see about how old they are. In general, the older generation is going to look at this on a laptop, whereas the younger generation is going to look at this on a mobile device.
I don't know.
Leslie
I'm old and I do a lot on my phone, but I will say that but you make a really good point about, it sort of makes your point about infographics versus text. So if you have a boss who's saying, I don't want white space, I want as much information as possible, just say, some people are going to be reviewing this on a phone. Do you really want it to look like that? Whereas if it looks like a graphic, I would open it to see it, I would, whatever that's called, push it out to see it better, zoom in.
Yeah.
Because it looks interesting. I'm not going to zoom into the text necessarily. I'm just going to go to the B and look at the bottom line, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is interesting to think about it. I'd never thought about that before, that not only are they looking at it on the screen, which was a great question from earlier, versus print. It's interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I absolutely don't want to sound ageist by saying, well, anybody over this age does it this way. And everybody, they're just, in general, I have found that, certain generations do it one way, certain generations do it another way. And you compare people in their 70s to, millennials and people in their 20s, and the thought process are so hardcore different. And the way they use technology is so hardcore different that it's difficult to do something one way and appeal to both. So that's one of the biggest challenges I've faced in designing for websites, where I have a team that has, a multi-generational team. Basically, there are people that, the younger generation, they want to see navigation behind that little hamburger, that 3-line thing that you see on your phone. Others want to see 79 links and the traditional navigation at the top. So it just depends, I guess.
It's also interesting to see, just in our portfolio, how young people see the work that we've done and what their favorite projects are. Images might be very different as they're getting younger over time. Older projects have been revived by young you know, it's very interesting because I always think that I can't edit my own, but if I ask someone else, you know, which is your favorite image of these, it helps me know which one to put in. And I think that is, so it's not really a point about youth, it's really a point about different points of view, and you don't know who's going to actually be reviewing it. It might be a team, and you know, half of the people are not going to resonate with this image that you think is the best thing ever. So you just don't know. You do your best, you make yourself happy.
And I see your comment here about how you've lost a project to a firm who ignored all the RFP requirements. I have been through that as well. I had a client just last week say, I say to him, okay, we need this, this, and this to meet the requirements. He's like, we're not doing it. We're not doing that. I know this guy, I have a relationship with this guy. And if he's picking firms based on our ability to provide this bullshit information, I don't want the job. And then they want it. Like,
well,
okay.
that
gave me so much like
they
anxiety.
specifically said, do not include in your portfolio any project that costs more than $300 a square foot. And the firm that won showed all projects that were like $1,000 a square foot, $2,000, you know, and of course they were more wow than the people who followed the rules.
I know those are the same. I feel like those are the same firms that win a job on a low fee and then give a million change orders down the road, compared to a company who gets the fee just right with no change orders, but they lose because they look more expensive. But in reality, they're not. That's annoying too.
Okay, you guys, well, just being mindful of everybody's time, it is 9:31 and we have come to the end of this session. Barbara, we want to thank you so much for being the leader of this session for us today. And thank you all for attending. We hope that you found this helpful and enjoyable. So with that, we will conclude.
Thanks,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
This is great. Thank you.